What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update, and some big news coming out of Spurs yesterday just after we left the studio regarding Leonardo Gabbanini, our head scout. And Ali Gold says that Spurs chief scout Leonardo Gabbanini has left the club after working closely with Ange Postecoglou during the summer transfer window. A number of clubs across Europe, particularly in Italy, were monitoring Gabbanini's situation in case of arrival of a new director of football at Spurs, which eventually led to his exit. That appears to have been the case. Matt Law says that Tottenham have sacked chief scout Leonardo Gabbanini, and Jacob Steinberg says that Gabbanini has left his position as Tottenham chief scout as the club restructures before the anticipated appointment of the new sporting director. I've seen quite a lot of Spurs fans quite upset and angry about Gabbanini leaving the club. Obviously, as reported, he has worked quite closely with Ange Postecoglou over the summer transfer window, which I do think Paratici has been quite close as well to things going on in his advisory role. But do you have much of an opinion on Gabbanini?
Look, I think he's done a good job. Maybe the signing of Richarlison might have cost him his job, but because that's the only real signing I can point to think like that's like one where you got wrong at the moment, albeit he can still turn it around. But I just think it's a case of Scott Munn's come in. He's going to want his own director of football. He's going to want to put his own people in place.
Wasn't Richarlison signed before Gabbanini came in anyway?
Gabbanini came in 22-23.
I thought he came in just last season.
That is last season.
I mean, after the summer transfer window.
I don't know, maybe. I can't remember exact dates. But look, he was brought in by Paratici. And I just think that usually when people come in and they want to pretty much put their own people in place a lot of the time. You see it a lot of the time when like a new owner comes in, like they'll sack the manager immediately and just appoint because they want their own person in there, the person they've selected. And I just think that's the case with Scott Munn. Clearly, we're going to appoint a director of football soon. That's what a lot of people are saying. So if that's the case, he's going to want his own head scout in place. So I just think it's a case. I don't think he's done a bad job. I don't think he's getting sacked because he's been bad. I just think it's a case of a shake-up because Scott Munn is going to appoint his own director of football. So he wants his own people in place. I think that's the case.
But when you're looking at the job Spurs has done over the past year, the caliber of player that we're bringing in, is there not a case to say if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
Yeah, you could definitely argue that, and they're going to have to live and die by their decision. But they've got a plan in place. I think you've got to give them control. If you appoint Scott Munn and his task is to appoint his own people and director of football, and he says, "Look, I want my own person. I don't want Gabbanini there. Not to say he's bad, but I just want my own guy there." Then you have to go with it. Otherwise, what's the point of hiring these people? You don't give them the control. So I think he's done a good job. I think it's a bit of a shame because I kind of like the work he's done, but it is what it is. That's the kind of the consequence of when you hire new people, and especially when you've kind of done the direction that we've gone in, which is we've gone for a manager, appointed a manager before we've appointed a director of football. Usually it should be the other way around. We've gone in that direction, so it's led to these kind of awkward scenarios, but I guess that's just how we have to move forward.
Yeah, I guess. And also, like, on the face of things, like, we can all assume and think about what's going on in the background in terms of recruitment this summer and last summer. But we don't actually know who's picking the players. We don't know who's doing the deals. Like, we're just assuming because he's been given the title of chief scout, we think like he's been the one choosing all the players, but we don't actually know what's going on in the background. Yeah,
I think when it comes to chief scout, I doubt they're the ones making the final decision, but I'm assuming they're the ones who are tasked with finding the players. And hopefully what the process should be is we give them a profile of player that we're looking for a certain price range and kind of what we're looking for each position. And they'd go out and try and find these players and scout for these type of profile players. And I think obviously last season didn't end very well, but I'm liking what we're doing this season. But look, I don't know if he's the one making the final decision. I doubt it. He's probably just the one finding the players, I would assume.
Let's talk about Fabio Paratici now. Matt Law says that Paratici has been working as a consultant for Tottenham during the summer, but that arrangement is likely to end now that Scott Munn has started his role. And Charlie Eccleshare says that it's understood that Spurs bringing in a permanent replacement for Paratici will be happening shortly, with Scott Munn officially starting to work at the club. And I, for one, are quite upset about this one. I know, like, everything that Paratici has gone through with his legal processes and stuff, and we kind of laid into him quite hard because of it. But on the face of things, since he's joined the club till the present day, I think that he's very much transformed the club in terms of players coming in. I think everything, that all the jobs that he's done pretty much since coming in has been brilliant so far. So we've heard Destiny Udogi's agent talking about him, saying he's shown his winning mentality in terms of the players that he's brought in, even when we had many left backs at the club still going and pressing ahead to get a top left back like Destiny Udogi in. So I think it'll be hard pressed to find someone that will work at that level.
Definitely, and he's clearly one of the best sporting directors around, and I think he's done a good job in the short amount of time he's been at Spurs. Yes, all the legal ramblings and everything has happened, so I think at the end of the day, we need a football sporting director who can legally operate in footballing matters, operations. I think that's pretty key to being a sporting director of football. So as much as I appreciate the work that Paratici's done, and even behind the scenes, I think it makes sense to keep him on in a consultancy role while we're looking for a director of football. But now, if we are set to bring one in, there are rumours that we have one lined up. If that is true, I don't know if you want him, still being there behind the scenes. You might do. Maybe the new director of football can work with him. But I think if you're a director of football and you're getting that job at Spurs, you want to know that you've got full control and this is your role. And maybe you don't want a Paratici behind the scenes, like stepping on your toes and making decisions and doing all this kind of thing. And I think that probably makes sense to maybe just have a clean break. If you're going to put your trust in the director of football, then you give him the keys and you give him control and you let him do his work. And not to say he couldn't do that with Paratici in the background, but maybe it's just a better for everyone, just to know where everyone stands.
Yeah, I just hope that we keep on this same path that we're on, because since he's joined the club, in terms of players being brought into the club, it's been like an upward trajectory. And you look at the list of players that have come into the club since he's joined, I mean, you would say like a high percentage of those are good signings. So I just hope that the guy who comes in, his successor, kind of just carries on the good work that he was doing at the end, essentially.
The one thing I agree with you what you're saying. The only thing I would say that Paratici, for me, was one of his failings was his managerial selections, because I always felt like he was getting all this young talent, like all these really good young players from across Europe, and he was doing really well and doing his due diligence and getting them. And then he was always looking for managers who was never going to play them and wasn't going to give them an opportunity. And all the managers you set to sign, like Gattuso and other, and Nuno, he was his choice, and obviously he ended up going with Conte as well. Like, I just never felt like they were the right fit for the club. So I think player-wise he was good, but I felt like when it came to like the managerial side of things, I don't think he really got it at Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know how involved he was in appointing Ange Postecoglou or anything like that, but Daniel Levy was speaking in the fans forum about it's his mistake. He was influenced by players and fans to bring in a win now manager. Maybe he was under instruction by Daniel Levy for that. So we don't really know, again, what's happened behind closed doors. And we know Paratici has got close ties to Antonio Conte, but we still don't know if that was under instruction from Daniel Levy. I
hear that, but the managers we appointed and also looked to appoint definitely seemed like, first was similar to managers that Paratici's appointed in the past for Juventus. And like people like Gattuso, I doubt that was like Levy's say. I'm pretty sure Paratici must have had a heavy influence in that kind of decision to go for him. So I think he did have a big say, Paratici. I think Levy, I think when Levy brings up that point, I think the main thing he talks about, in my opinion, he's talking about, I mean, obviously I don't know, but I reckon he's more talking about Mourinho than he is about Conte, because I think when it came to Mourinho, that was an active decision the club took to sack Pochettino and go in a separate direction, whereas I felt like Conte was more of an act of desperation than anything, and I don't think the Pochettino and Mourinho decision was.
You mean, yeah, but he did say, I'm not sure if it was the Bloomberg interview or the fans forum, that he made two mistakes in that factor, and that was Conte and Mourinho. So he did speak about both of them when he was speaking about those kind of mistakes.
Yeah, I know he is. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I criticise him more for the Mourinho one than the Conte one.
Yeah, that's fair enough, because that was the kind of
when he decided exactly. That was like the kind
of derailment from.
I felt like when he appointed Conte, it was going so bad with Nuno, like. Maybe the biggest mistake with Conte is not just like going our separate ways once we got top four, and maybe just going for a clean break then, because there was rumours that he might leave and we ended up convincing him to stay. So maybe that was the big mistake with Conte. But you got to remember, we were in an absolute crisis when we appointed Conte. We were just desperate for any good manager to come in and sort the situation out. So I understood the decision to go to Conte at that point, but the Mourinho one I understood less.
You wanted Jose after he got sacked.
Yeah, after I did, but I wanted Poch to stay.
Yeah.
I was of the opinion that if we know we have a manager who can work in a budget and knows how to do a project and knows how to do a rebuild, so give him another rebuild and allow him that time, like Klopp had last season, to just go through a bit of a tough period and give him the players to go back to the way to rebuild the team and go back to the way we were playing before. Once Pochettino had been sacked, I was of the opinion that if you're going in that direction, then go with Mourinho and give him the full backing. But obviously, it was the wrong decision.
Yeah, I mean, that we should never have gone in that direction in point. I think at the time, I think I said I wanted Julian Nagelsmann. Imagine if we got Julian Nagelsmann at that point, like where we would be right now.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting.
But let's talk about Hugo Lloris. Matt Law saying the expectation is Hugo Lloris will leave Tottenham on a free transfer in January, and I think that just makes complete sense, to be honest.
Yeah, but I just don't understand what's the difference in January and summer in terms of why he's going to be more likely to cancel his contract.
Because maybe there were offers coming in till the very last second for Hugo Lloris, right until the end of the transfer window, and probably the club assumed that he would take up one of those offers, and obviously that didn't come to pass. So
also he could sign a pre-contract with someone in January, technically, leading to the summer for free, so for a foreign club as well. So maybe that plays into it. So look, I don't see him getting any game time between now and January. I don't think he's going to be reintegrated to the team. I think it's a bit awkward that he's still around, but I'm not even considering him as an option at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah. All right, we've got some quotes from Cuti Romero on Ange Postecoglou, so let's go through them. And he goes, he is a person whose ambition is clear. He just wants to win. From the first day he got here, he made it very evident. I think this is a good moment. I think the club needed this kind of manager who fits perfectly with the history of the club. He is a very prepared manager, and he's got his objectives clear. He wants to achieve things. I can see that the manager here wants to create a family, and we're on the right track to form the best characteristics and to speak for the players. I believe we are on the right track. And then he goes on to say that we are talking on the North London derby this weekend, saying we are pretty much treating every game as it is a final. First up, we have Arsenal on Sunday, and we're treating it as a final, not just because it's a derby, because that's how we want to approach games this season. Game by game, we will see what our ambitions are. The ambition is just to win, but not just to win, but to reach higher. We want as a group to reach higher, as a club deserve to be in the top 4, and we hope to achieve that. So any takeaways from those comments?
Yeah, I think obviously he's been speaking very highly of Ange even before this interview as well. So it's great that Ange is obviously making an impression on him. I really feel like the fact that Romero has this armband, or vice captain armband anyway, has really given him more of a sense of responsibility within the team, not just for himself, but to be a leader with the players as well. And I think that is helping him take his game up another level this season. When it comes to what he was saying about our ambitions, obviously he says top 4, so I mean it makes sense. At the beginning of the season, I think top 4 would have been an unbelievable achievement, and if we can get that this season in Postecoglou's first season, I'll be delighted. So I think it's a good aim. You don't want to set yourself basically the target of like winning the league or anything, because that's not going to be realistic in the first season. But I think the main thing is creating a family feel, because that's definitely something that's massively been lost in the past 4 years, especially since that's probably the biggest thing within the element of the team that's been lost. So I think recapturing that and rebuilding the that feeling within the team, everyone fighting for each other. And you know, we kind of Conte and Mourinho tried to instill like this ruthless kind of winning mentality within the team, but we just didn't have the squad, and we're just not the club at the moment to be able to instill that mentality within this team. We have to build that, and I feel like they kind of tried to like shoehorn and shove it down our throats before we were ready for it. And hopefully Postecoglou can organically engineer that rather than trying to force it.
Yeah, are you surprised kind of like how quickly he's been able to instill like a family feel within the club?
Massively, because you even remember like Pochettino, like it took him a long time to, you know, weed out a lot of the players who had influence in the team and even drop them from the team and try and instill that family. It probably took him a year, I would say, to really get that to where he wanted it to be. And Postecoglou has got that going very, very quickly. So I'm very surprised from what I'm seeing, definitely on the pitch. And the fact that everyone seems to be pulling in the same direction, everyone seems to be so happy, everyone's happy with the leadership group as well. I am very surprised, but at the end of the day, it's only 5 games, so we'll see how we're doing after like 20 games. You know, if there's been bumps in the road, and if maybe there's some games where our football isn't going to be as good, as how we react to those kind of games. But at the moment, I couldn't be happier. After 5 games, it's been near perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is your Tottenham update. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories we brought to you today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.